Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. It is Friday, June 4th, 2021. I'm Andrew Hansen alongside Joe Sarvati, affectionately known as Coach. And man, what a day we have set up here, Coach. Only one game on the NBA DFS slate, 9 o'clock Eastern. I know exactly what you're going to be doing, just like probably everybody else who's watching and listening. Your Mavericks have a chance to pull the upset and take out the Clippers. Are they going to do it?
I'll tell you what, man. Here, I have one thing to do. Let's see if the camera catches it.
Oh, yeah.
Is it
I see it. It's right there front and center. The
beautiful?
Mavs logo.
I have no idea what to expect in this game, Andrew. I'm telling you, man, it has been such a bizarre series to have all five teams win on the road.
That's right.
5 games. I mean, it's just like, what the heck? So, I mean, the spread has come down. Clippers still remain favored. They've been favored every game this series. They're a 2.5-point favorite, 216.5 over under. So I think Vegas thinks they're going to tighten up on each other. I mean, it's going to feel like a game 7 for sure. I know that this is going to be the biggest crowd at the game here at the American Airlines Center. It's going to be a little over 80% capacity. So it's going to be about 3 times louder than the last game was even. So it's going to be crazy. Great players on both sides. Pretty even matchup as we've seen. And man, I'll be rooting my heart out, but I don't know which way it's going to go. I would say it is literally a toss-up.
Yeah, I didn't even write down the line here, probably for the first time all season, because I don't think it matters too much. For
Right.
DFS, this is a Game 7 type environment. I think it could go either way. It's going to be a great battle. And, to continue the point you kind of touched on there, we may need to coin a new phrase here, road court advantage. There's no home court advantage in this series. Every team has won on the road. The first team to win a home game will win this series. Because if Dallas does it tonight, they'll win it. Clippers in Game 7. Or if not, if the road court advantage continues, then the Clippers will win it in Game 7 on Sunday. But let's start with your Mavs here, since they are the home team, and see if they can buck that trend and get it done on the home floor.
Well, Dallas is going nuts for this team and this game. I mean, I don't think people realize. They think Mavs and Dirk and some good success recently, but what people don't realize is it's been 10 long years since the Mavs have made a really legit run in the playoffs. So this is by far the biggest game in a decade. I don't think of it as that long of a period of time because I remember that run and a couple runs before that. But guys like my son, who's 20 years old, that's half his life. He's never been this pumped up for a Mavs game. So the town is electric. There's going to be a big crowd outside of American Airlines Center whooping it up too. So it's going to really feel like playoff basketball. And, the Mavs are healthy and ready to go. I know that they have Luka and Kleba both listed as probable, but I can tell you they're both definitely playing. So nobody's going to be out on that side. And Ibaka's the doubtful one on the Clippers side, so we don't think he's going to suit up. So it'll be, just like the last game as far as personnel. But I'll tell you, hats off to Carlisle. I've dogged him a few times this year with his odd rotations and, never winning a challenge and not having timeouts at the end of games. There's just a lot of holes in some of the stuff that he does. But he's coached a hell of a series here because his number one goal going in was if they're going to start Zubac, we're going to run a pick and roll. Doesn't matter who Zubac is guarding, that's the person setting the pick. And then we want Luka to go one-on-one with Zubac. And we know for the first 2 games it worked, and at the 30-11 point in Game 3 when they were up, it worked. But then Ty Lue adjusted and basically played Zubac off the floor and put Batum in, which created a shift back to the Clippers side. So it's been a nice chess match between 2 coaches that I think have stepped up their game. And I don't expect much different here. The twist in Game 5 that stunned everybody obviously was Carlisle going to Boban, and boy, did that work. I mean, that, it was
When
such a
doesn't
great.
it work, Coach? When Boban
I
plays,
know.
good things happen. It's a magical mystery.
No one in DFS, we all scratch our heads because the guy puts up like Giannis DFS
He
points per
does.
minute numbers. He
He's
really
his
does. He's like
DFS is basically
1.7.
Giannis and Boban. They're the best out there.
I mean, it's really bizarre how well he does for the time that he's in there. And did you that last game was it was like it was flashback to coaching middle school ball,
Right?
and you have one real big kid,
Yep.
and you just barely lob the ball up to him, and he holds it up higher
Yep.
than all the other kids, and everybody else is jumping on him trying to get the ball.
You know what
I
I
mean,
thought it was like? It's like if
yeah,
any, average, say 6'2" to 6'4" ball player is out on the court and he's playing with a bunch of kids,
yeah,
like basically like Facu Campazzo, a bunch of just pesky kids, these pests, just trying to grab at him and pull on him. And, he's up in the clouds doing his thing.
crazy. Yeah, and at this level, you wouldn't think you would see that, but it just goes to show you. But that's how it was a few times. Luka does that real soft little loop up there for him to go get it, because you can't make it a real tough pass to catch, and then everybody else is just flying around trying to get the ball out of his hands. But I thought it was a fantastic counter move, perfect move, because okay, fine. They made the first move. They took Zubats off the floor and went small. Good strategy. So what does Carlisle do? Well, if you're going to do that, we're going to start Boban, and we're just going to feed him in the paint and just murder you inside. And it worked. So what happens this game, Andrew?
Right.
That's my question to you. Now you've got point, counterpoint, and now he's answered it. So, what do the Clippers do, and what does Dallas do? My prediction is I think they start Boban again because it worked. I think they play him in those short spurts. And I think the guy you're going to see get a lot more minutes at center, who was very, very critical in their winning of the last game, is Dwight Powell. Because of his athleticism, the way he moves, it's just so much smoother than Willie Cauley-Stein and, of course, Boban. And his defensive presence helps. So, he's going to probably go with a very similar rotation as he did this last game. Now, the only question for me is Tyronn Lue going to insert Zubats back in to counteract the Boban move? That's the dilemma I'm looking at right now. Because if he puts Zubats back in, that shifts everything. And then I think he probably Carlisle pulls Boban, and they go back to step two. Let's pick and try to get an ISO Luka on Zubac. So I'm telling you, man, from a coaching standpoint, it is really like a chess match.
It is. And if I were Carlisle, I would stick with Boban. And if the Clippers switch it up and start Zubats, I'd say fine. I can live with Boban against Zubats. But what will they do? I'm not sure. Could go either way. But I think that is the key rotation there.
Yeah.
Boban, Powell, Batum, Zubats. In the end, my prediction is that the minutes will be pretty similar, regardless of who starts. The only big difference would be for the Mavericks if Boban does not start. Then I don't think you can count on 20 minutes for him like last game.
Exactly. And that's the news we have to have that will shift everything around. Because, Carlisle, man, he is very liable to, start Powell instead of Boban. That's my gut feeling if they go back to Zubac. So we need to watch that. Even though it's only one game tonight, we need to, firmly watch those lineups as they come in. And Carlisle holds back as long as he can. So, for members out there, it'll be 20 minutes before lock before we can post stuff, because we definitely need that final news. Because I'm with you. If Boban doesn't start, I don't think you can really trust using him, because it's just too dangerous. If he does start, we know in 20 minutes, he's going to get what most big guys get in 35 anyway. So he's very playable. But what it comes down to in DFS in a showdown slate now is, let's look at the big picture here. So we know the Mavs, what they're planning on doing. We know the last game, really the difference down the stretch of that game. And it's bizarre to say this, but Kawhi Leonard just had a terrible fourth quarter. He had 3 or 4 turnovers, very uncharacteristic, missed a couple of shots. And, that's, I think, the story coming out of there that scares me as a Mavs fan, because I think Kawhi comes out tonight like a maniac.
Absolutely. This is not going to be an easy task. He's back in Texas. He's had plenty of success there with San Antonio. So your crew down there is going to have their hands full.
There's no doubt. And, it's going to be Kleba that gets the assignment on him, and he's not 100% anyway. Plus, how do you guard Kawhi, really? I mean, I'm hoping the Mavs run a little bit, few doubles at him and, live with the results, except if George gets hot, then it's very hard to double Kawhi. So we'll see how that goes. But I'll tell you this, let's shift it completely to the DFS build side. And by the way, we're going to go over everything, break these games down, game script them as we go through the playoffs now, and we get these 1-game slates or 2-game slates at the most. We're going to try to get down into the weeds and figure out and talk these things through. That's how, we've gotten hot lately. And, the 2 nights in a row that we had of top 0.5% contests where we finished really high, a lot of it is just talking it through like this. What are the matchups? What's the rotation? What do the minutes look like? And it's humongous for this game. And if there's a game 7, because in my mind, you have Kawhi and Luka like in the stars. I mean, those are the 2 guys that I don't know how you don't roster. They're just so dominant of players. Then you have the one guy that at least can see them, and that's George. But after that, you can take the whole group, and I'll just give this to you real quick because I literally look at these guys even right now. And that's Porzingis, Hardaway, Morris, Jackson, Finney-Smith, Rondo, Batum, and Terrence Mann. That group of guys, I think you can have any combination that may work or may not. So, for me, and I'm interested to get your input on this, it's just you got to play Luka, Kawhi, Luka. One, just that's a no-brainer to me. And then finding the rest of the guys to fill out that showdown group of that huge list that I mentioned, because there's not one of those guys, because they're below George, all the rest of those guys, they've had good games and bad games in the playoffs and in the regular season, so there's no shoe-ins. Will people go with the sleeper guys that, Rondo and Mann finishing some games and getting extra minutes at guard? Will they go with the stalwarts that normally get it done, like a Hardaway or a Morris? I mean, there's so many different options to go here, and I think you can game script it out where, most of them can work.
Yeah, I think that's an important group to consider, and it is an interesting group because of the balance with the minutes, the talent, the shots, the upside. Obviously, the starters primarily have a bigger ceiling than guys at the end of that group that you mentioned, like Mann.
Right.
I think it does depend on the site. And so let's start with DraftKings. You
Sure.
can always pay up for a stud like Luka or Kawhi, and if they get 60 to 70 fantasy points, then you're off to a great start because you get the 1.5x return. But
Right.
the extra salary that you have to pay makes it tough at the end of that bench, at the end of your utility group, because then you have to have one more guy from the back end of that rotation, the cheaper guys,
Right.
the guys like Rondo or Mann or THJ sort of mid range or DFS guys like that. You're going to
Sure.
need one more of them. So you certainly can do that. I also like to look at the mid-tier option and the cheap option. So if you take a mid-tier option like a Tim Hardaway Jr. or a Marcus Morris, and they have 40 fantasy points or more, then it might work because you can get Luka and Kawhi, and you can feel better about the rest of your roster. Or if you go really cheap, 3 or 4 thousand. So in general, like if you just think about DraftKings Showdown without these players, you get the $12,000 pay up guy, you get the $6,000 to $7,000 mid range guy, you get the $3,000 to $4,000 value guy. If you take a $3,000 or $4,000 guy who gets you 30 fantasy points, then you can really load up the lineup with a bunch of guys that you like. And so
Right.
before I finalize a roster on a DraftKings Showdown slate, I go into it with that mentality. I want to mess around with the pay up. I want to mess around with the mid tier. I want to mess around with the cheap guy. See how it all plays out. Today, I'm just a tiny bit off for some of the the mid tier and the cheap captains, MVPs, making it work. FanDuel, I've got a 5-star lineup in my opinion built. The pricing works out, so we can talk about that in a minute. But I think all three approaches are worth considering today. So I'm gonna keep playing with that.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, you've had great success for members or listeners that haven't been with us a long time. Andrew has just hammered showdown slates with a mid-tier or even value guy in that big spot, and then stacking up the rest of the guys behind him and being able to afford them. And I admire that tremendously. I generally go the opposite way, which is good because we both look at it differently and gives our members some different looks at it. But for me, I want the anchor in that top spot and then make it work with the rest of the group, unless it's super lopsided. Like I remember there was one where Portland played, and sure, Lillard's the best, but you could get a huge game from CJ McCollum. Maybe he blows it up, or Nurkic blows it up, or even a Powell. So when you do that, then for me, I would buy down and then you stack a few of those guys together. But this game, to me, it's Kawhi and Luka, slightly George, and everybody else is a dime a dozen. It's just the way I see it. So I'm gonna definitely play either Kawhi or Luka at that top spot. And most people listening know I'm a Luka fan. I supported him a ton this last game. He was a 5-star slate captain for me in that game. But I'm not so sure this time, Andrew, as much as Dirk's yelling at me. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Don't say that, Dirk. No swearing.
Well, that's what he's saying to you. Don't say that about Luka.
Exactly. But if I had to make my lineup right now, I would have Kawhi in that spot.
Interesting.
And Luke could make it, but not in that top spot. I just think because Kawhi finished so poorly and the Mavs don't really have an answer for him, Kleber's the best we got for that. And I just think he's going to come out like a maniac. So anyway, for me, it's those two guys. And I think the ownership, it's going to be fun to see when the percentages come out, because you're going to have probably like 45%, or I'd say 55% Luka, 40% Kawhi, and 5% George. I don't know unless that's why maybe your kind of build is super sneaky if you can back it into some better players. But, you can't worry about chalk and showdowns or splitting. This isn't like our normal builds where you put a value guy and, you correlate and you do all this. It's very simple. Get the guys in there that are going to get the most points right across the board, and you're good to go. So
yeah, if it ends up being a big tie, that's fine. You're okay with that. We'd rather tie for first than not.
Than not cash, right?
And I agree that the psychology that you're referencing there makes sense. Kawhi, ultra motivated, didn't get it done. So it could be his night. And you were right on Luka in that last game. He was your guy. He smashed, and he gave you that huge finish. So, of anyone out there to listen to about Luka, you are the guy. So,
well, I'm not down on him. I think he'll do fine, but I just don't know if he outscores Kawhi in this one. I mean, I don't know how you let a single guy beat you. And I'll tell you right now, Andrew, watching this series, let me put it to you this way. If Luka was not on the team, the Clippers win every game by 20. They sweep it and it's over.
Yep.
And the Mavs don't even make the playoffs. He's that much of a dominant player to everything that they do. And you saw the stats there, 40 of 43 possessions, he either scored or assisted. I mean, it's sort of, like the old Magic Johnson days for a stretch there, with the Lakers. He either was going to go inside, score, finish it, fast break it, or he was assisting to everybody. That kind of dominance that you see very seldom. You get that from the Kobes and Jordans, but that's all in a scoring, take over the game sense. But when you're talking about the full plethora of shooting the three, driving to the hoop, drawing fouls, and then assisting and seeing everybody on the floor, Luka's in a very, very rarefied air as far as that goes. And I'll tell you, it shows in this series big time.
Yeah, and the fun thing about showdown slates and the different sites and the different structures is that on DraftKings, it's not necessarily put in the guy who you think is going to have the most points, because there's a difference in price and then it multiplies.
Right.
So it could be, even if Kawhi gets a point or two less than Luka, he may be the better MVP on DraftKings. But on FanDuel, you just need the guy up there who you think is going to score the most points, as long as you can fill out the rest of the roster with strong finishers. So
let's talk about FanDuel a little bit.
Let's talk about FanDuel. I think I think in this game you need either Luka or Kawhi at the top. Can we agree on that?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, again, that you're not paying a penalty for salary.
Exactly.
So you got to be crazy. I don't even think just the top spot. If you don't have Kawhi Luka or Luka Kawhi, I think you're really grasping for straws.
So I agree with that. Just zero in on who you think is going to score more fantasy points. And I'll say that Kawhi's been a little bit more consistent in the mid-50s, but Luka has had the better ceiling.
Yeah.
So you gotta evaluate that. But here's what I want to say about this slate on FanDuel is I'm fired up about this build that I have, Coach. And it reminds me of a few days ago, I got all fired up with our members about the Memphis-Utah showdown, because you could get all four guards that I wanted to put.
And Royce O'Neal,
Conley, Mitchell, Ja, Brooks, and Royce O'Neal. And, we played it. It cashed.
Smashed.
But the amazing thing is, the next time those two teams played, I went to the showdown and tried to build the same thing. You couldn't even get those four guards in the lineup with anybody. It wasn't about, I got those four guys and now I have to put in Niang or somebody. You couldn't play it. They priced them up too much. So that's why we track the pricing so closely every day, every slate, every site, to try to give our members the best advantage. And sometimes we say this is a 5-star slate. Let's get after it. Sometimes we say we don't like this showdown slate. We're not even going to play it.
Right.
And that happened last night. But tonight there's a build that I love, so we'll save that for the members. I can't wait to roll it out there and get this thing started.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be, the nice thing is, granted, everybody's going to have those two as their top two, but there's such a variance of build after that. All those guys I mentioned again.
Yep.
And the key is, I guess, plucking the one out that's going to get that 1.2x in that third spot ends up being gigantic. And then, making sure you don't have to go in the fourth and fifth spots with somebody that may only play 10 minutes. I mean, it really becomes, where can these three guys get 30 plus minutes? If you can do that, along with Kawhi and Luka, you're going to have as good a shot as anybody, in my opinion.
Yep. Do we want to touch on YAHOO at all? This is something that
let's touch on that briefly, because we've been hot there. A lot of more members are joining. And if you're not familiar with YAHOO, it runs very similar to FanDuel, in the sense where they call it Megastar, Superstar, and Star. But it's the same thing, 2x, 1.5x, 1.2x, and then two flex guys. So, that's where it's, it's really a very similar build, but their pricing is different. You're going to get some some real good breaks there. And as you know, for people to play Yahoo, you got a lot of $10 guys that get minutes that you have to choose from that can really make that upper part work. And just a couple examples in which $10 is their minimum price. You could play Brunson, Kleba, Boban, Josh Richardson, Cauley Stein, Powell, Burke, who's gotten in a little bit, Terrence Mann. These guys, Zubats, those guys all play.
Yeah.
They all get on the floor, and they're all minimum priced. The only guys I'd steer from, it looks like Pat Bev is out of the rotation pretty much. He played like 3 seconds. But other than that, I mean, you can pluck any two of those $10 guys out and then stack up above that too.
Coach, those guys aren't a dime a dozen. They're $10 a dozen.
$10 a dozen. Yes.
Yeah, that's a big group
that
of value
makes it
players.
work.
Yeah, and then
I want to take the guy by the name of Jay Scrub,
right?
Because I like the name. That's all.
It's a crazy name for a basketball player, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think he takes any heat over that one.
No.
But
he looked good at the end of the season when they were trying to tank. The lefty, he
did get some good minutes. Yeah. Some scrub minutes.
All right, Coach. Well, let's summarize here. For our members, we are going to build the full lineups on FanDuel and Yahoo, like we always talk about. Cash lineup, GPP. We give the core out on DraftKings for the cash build, the GPP build, and we are welcoming new members. The perfect time to join. Go to dfscoachtalk.com. You get a 3-day membership if you want to try us out for a little bit, or you grab our best package ever, the 111 for 2 months. And all of those packages are for all of our sports, baseball every day, golf twice a week, and then football when that starts up. So dfscoachtalk.com to become a member.
Absolutely. And Friday's our most popular day for those 3-day, passes, because not only do you get all of our basketball lineups tonight, all of our baseball lineups, and it's a 15-game Major League Baseball slate tonight. So you got that, and then you got all the weekend golf action, and it just rolls right into Saturday and Sunday as well. So we would love to have you. Just dfscoachtalk.com. Or if you have any questions, just shoot us a message at DFS Coach Talk on Twitter. Andrew's at Language Olympic, and I am at JOESARVADI.
Excellent. And then if you haven't yet already, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'd love to have you. And then grab those notifications when these podcasts post. They'll continue 7 days a week throughout the playoffs in front of the paywall. So thank you all for tuning in. On behalf of the coach and the rest of the DFS Coach Talk team, I'm Andrew Hansen. We'll see you tomorrow as we look to crush it in DFS.